Hi, and welcome to AKS This and Crochets number 45. I'm Lisa,
I'm Cryss.
and I don't know what we're going to do today. Got no outline, got no list, got nothing. It's going to be a wild and woolly one, ladies and gentlemen.
Or it's just going to be us talking. Don't expect a lot. Don't get the hopes up.
It's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. So, what are we talking about today?
Guess what, y'all? It's finished. The overtime tap, which took me all 60 of them hours.
You should have never calculated it.
I needed to know. I need to know these things. But here she is. I have to weave in ends. So understand that when I say something's finished, I mean but for the weaving in of ends. I always mean but for the weaving in of ends. But I'm going to work on weaving in ends sooner. But yeah, she's a lot. There's a lot of fabric here.
Yeah,
there's a lot happening.
Though.
But see my ripple stitches. And I rippled the shoulder strap. So this cute little detail.
Oh, I could not see the ripple shoulder strap.
And she came out exactly like I was hoping. And here is a picture of me wearing it. And those green pants, I had those like in my mind while I was making it. And that's what kept me going. I was like, but that's going to be such a cute outfit. You got to like stick with it. Then it's this top. So you can wear it with them cute green pants. And I'm very happy with how it came out.
That's exciting.
60 hours. I felt every one of them.
I know you did.
The last week, I really tried to up my crochet hours per day. Because I was in the home stretch. When I started on that last square, I was like, I'm going to get this off my plate. I'm going to finish this thing. And I finally got it done. But it worked out like, this might be the first time I used my 2.25 millimeter hook.
How was it?
I feel like I should have started with something smaller to do this much crocheting.
Yeah.
With that hook. But
the fabric feels really nice.
It does. If you don't like linen, you won't like this. This is Ito Gima 8.5. But I don't know how they got cotton to feel like this. And it's a tape yarn too. Yeah, they really did something amazing.
But super fine tape. Wow.
Let me tell you how fine this yarn is. When I stitched on my shoulder straps, I used this yarn, but with a sewing needle.
Whoa. Wow. Okay.
Yes, I passed it through a sewing needle and stitched my shoulder straps on. So it's a very fine yarn. But
it floats, it drapes,
it moves.
It's really gorgeous.
I love it.
Now, how does it feel on?
Wonderful. Now, let me tell y'all, I did a little math thing. So each ball of yarn is, I think, 231 yards. And it took me 5 balls of each color.
Whoa.
So when all is said and done, this bad boy is over 3,000 yards. And she doesn't feel like it at all.
You know what we have to do?
Very lightweight and comfortable to wear.
We should weigh it and see.
I don't feel like we need to do that. Calculating the man hours is traumatic enough.
Because it's not heavy. There's no heaviness to it at all.
But it wears beautifully. It feels very lightweight. It moves wonderfully. It's amazing to think how much yarn is actually in it, because you don't feel, and for it to be cotton too. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they did this to this yarn. It's really amazing. I am all prepared to become an Ito fangirl. I just want to get more of their yarn first. But I really do want to experiment with some of their other lines. I mentioned the cashmere and sable yarn they have. I got to get my hands on that one. But it's really one of the most beautiful cotton yarns I've ever worked with.
I know you've had a summer of exploring cotton.
I have. I wore my my wool walk tee today to go pick up some Chinese food, and I was like, "Dang, this is cute." I was like, "I made a cute top." So I always lose track though of how many balls of yarn I use for something. So I decided I would just hang on to all my ball bands, and that's how I was able to count. But I was able to like guesstimate how much yarn I would need because I had to make sure I had enough in each color. And I did. Um, but I just hung on to all the ball bands, and so this is 15.
You are good. I never hold on to all the
Yeah, it was an
bands.
effort. It was an effort. But it's finished. Like, oh my God, like all the stitching is done. I'm just the stitching, the seaming, I'm just having to even ends.
Now, how did you block it?
I ironed it actually because it was wrinkled. I was keeping the each individual square folded so it would fit in my project bag. So it really did need an ironing when it was done, but I didn't do anything. I had the steam setting on, but I didn't, wet it or anything. Yeah, I just gave it a quick iron.
Yeah, and it just smoothed right out.
But I'm gonna have to iron it again because I want to iron my seam smoothly. Oh, I did want to talk about my seaming because I did this ripple stitch. I had 2 straight sides and then 2 rippled sides. And the way you construct the top, you're actually stitching together adjacent sides, not opposite sides. So one of your sides that you're stitching is going to be rippled. And I was a little worried about that. And so as I was working on it, I was thinking about, well, what am I going to do about the rippled sides? And what I ended up doing was stitching them together, crest to trowel.
Oh.
So I didn't make the 2 crests meet because if you think about the ripples, right, where the crests meet, those trowels are going to be further apart from each other. And so if I stitched them side by side and then went like this, you see this gap here? Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to have in my stitches, which meant everywhere I had 2 crests meeting, I was going to get bubbling.
Yeah, you're going to get out. Yeah.
So instead, I stitched them together, crest to trowel, and I got a nice smooth seam. So you can see that here. So there is my nice little, and so it looks like just the ripple pattern just continues.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I was going for. So that's just a thing you need to think about if you're seaming ripple stitches. But like I said, I had been thinking about it while I was working on it. So it's not like I did it the wrong way first. I actually got ahead of that problem and was able to make sure it wasn't an issue.
Nice.
And I just did my usual slip stitch seam. Did I do slip stitch or single crochet? No, you know what? As a matter of fact, I did a single crochet seam on this one.
Now, why'd you go with a single crochet as opposed to your usual
slip
stitch?
When you slip stitch, it's almost like sewing in that you're going to have stitches along the side of your work. But what I wanted was a stitch to go over the top so those edges would be bound together.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So you end up with that line.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I wanted. So I did change it a little bit just because the fabric was so fine. I just wanted to make sure it was very securely bound, and I was worried. I didn't know, how much weight I would feel. So I just felt like that was a more secure way to do it. And dealing with that ripple edge especially, I felt like that could have gotten really messy if I didn't do it that way.
But it came out super neat.
I'm not going to do any finishing work on the edges. I feel like the edges look just fine the way they are.
Did you take any pictures of the seam?
Not specifically of the seam. No.
Take a couple of close-ups of the seam so folks can see that, because the seam looks really good.
Yes, she does, doesn't she? Ah! But yeah, it I can't believe that. I was just saying, it's finished, and I don't know. I feel like I don't know what to do with my time. Obviously, I have another project I want to work on, but we just had dinner, and normally after dinner, I take my work out and find something to binge while I was stitching, and it's just like, wait, I don't have to do that.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
I still can't believe really that it's finished, but it is, and I can wear it now. And I made multiple outfits with it, and I'm like, it really fits in with my wardrobe.
Did you have a blog post up about that yet?
No, don't guilt me, dude.
Just so if you can see the outfits, they were really cool.
We're not up to blog posts yet. Okay.
Okay, my bad.
We just finished the top.
My bad.
But she's finished. Yay!
So that means you're gonna get started. I thought I saw you swatching for your first fall make-along project yesterday.
Well, hold up, wait a minute. You sitting here with a crochet hook in your hand and you ain't got nothing to say?
Okay, let me tell you guys about my crochet. I had a nice chunk of yarn left over from my outline tank, right? This is a complete skein, really. So I decided that I was going to make an accessory to go along with my tank. I got one of these bag bottoms from Mom, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do a bag. So I'm actually crocheting it. Now, I was always going to start out with it crocheted because it's just easier to crochet around the bottom of the bag.
Did you try knitting it first?
Well, not joining to the holes.
Okay.
I was always going to crochet this part.
I don't know how you do it. Sometimes you need a hook.
So I did it. I went all the way around with my crochet hook with just single crochets. And then I started knitting into it. And it was impossible. It was impossible.
Okay, I thought I saw you doing something with knitting needles.
Yes. So I tried to do a magic loop, but this hard bottom makes it just about impossible to get the knitting going. So I was like, all right, magic loop is not going to work for me. Let me try double points. So I got out 8 double points so I could get all the way around. It was still a pain in the butt. So I was like, you know what, honey, you can crochet. So I'm just going to crochet it. And I'm going to make it kind of echo the top by doing just a simple space that will represent the
drop stitches.
The drop stitches. So I'll do, one here, one there, one there, one there, just like on the top. So it should be really cute. But yes, that's why I'm crocheting today.
I'm like, wait a minute, we're not going to tell anyone about this? We're not going to talk about this?
It was actually impossible to knit this. And I see why knitters don't make bags like this. Because it is impossible.
Well, you could have done a bag that didn't use this bottom.
Yeah, but I really like the bottom. I love that it has the little feet on it.
The feet are nice.
Yeah, the feet are kind of cool. And I'm going to look for a really cute handle. Actually, I was going to ask you, remember those handles you didn't like? I think it'll go perfect with this.
Yeah, I think they're in a drawer somewhere.
Cool. So I might even have handles already. But I'm loving it. And I get to work with this yarn again. It actually feels almost too good to use for a bag, to be perfectly honest. But like I said, I have so much of it, I don't want it to go to waste. So I'm going to have a cute bag to go with my top. Shazam!
Now, I did start swatching. I feel like choosing a stitch pattern is the part of designing that I hate the most. Because I already have trouble making decisions. You put a lot of options in front of me, and it's going to take me the better part of a day.
It's like when the restaurant menu is too big.
Yeah, to decide. But then you really do have to swatch and see what happens with your fabric. And so I did, I swatched and ripped and swatched and ripped and swatched and ripped. But I did a whole bunch of swatches. Point being, I don't have them all. I just have the latest one. This yarn it's like ball bands or somewhere around. It was Lana Gatto something or other, but it's a 50 wool, 50 cotton. It's a very hairy wool though. It does not frog nicely. Ask me how I know. So it's been a pain in the butt ripping out. So I feel pressure to decide on a stitch pattern quickly because I don't want to have to rip out anymore. But I think I'm on to something now. I'm going to do something where, because it's a shawl, so I'm going to do something where it's like at an angle. But I haven't decided yet. Am I going to do, working straight across and, you know, increasing at one end and decreasing at the other end to make this parallelogram shape? Or am I going to try just crocheting the whole thing on the bias, which I've never actually done. So I don't know yet. But once I started working with this angle, I was like, I think I like this. And so this is just alternating rows of single and double crochet. I might add in a few more rows of singles between the double crochets. I don't know. I'm still making decisions. I have no idea what I'm doing here. But it's coming together. I really love the colors in this yarn. It's different shades of purple, and then where you see it's reading kind of like teal here, but that's really kind of like an electric blue color that just pops up every once in a while, and it's really, really nice. And then I'm going to combine, I'm not going to hold it with the mohair, but I'm going to use mohair in the design and kind of make like a long swoosh for my shawl. And I feel like it's kind of, even though like I'm not going to be doing exactly the stitch pattern, my swatch has been instructed for me. I worked with a 3mm hook. This is a kind of a thicker fingering weight, and my stitches are a little bit more dense than I would like because I really want a little bit more flow. Mm-hmm. So I am going to go up book size. I never go above a 4mm working with fingering weight yarn. So I'm going to try something maybe around my 3.75, or maybe go all the way to 4mm, because I know you can size up when you're working with mohair.
Yeah, easily.
So I'm going to go up in hook size for sure.
The bigger you go with the mohair, the lighter and floatier it will be.
But I've got the stirrings of an idea happening. So hopefully I will have it like underway by the next time we film, and I can show y'all what she's looking like.
So do you have an idea basically of what the full picture of the shawl is, or are you still kind of
bringing that into focus? I showed it last week.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna fold in half, it's stitched at one shoulder, and then it's gonna have like a long tail hanging down.
Cool. No, I didn't know if that was still the plan.
Yeah, that's still the plan. Last thing you want to do is start changing the plan now. But yeah, so it should be very simple. That is how I kind of like to work. I like to do something where the way you work it is simple, but then you just give it kind of some zhuzh, something. It's something that looks more complicated than it was. Like I feel like the handkerchief hem top looks like way more work than it was. It was a lot of man hours, but I did single and double crochet stitches in a rectangular shape. There was really like nothing to it. But, you know, I did the color blocks, I did the ripple stitch, I did the handkerchief hem construction, and I feel like it just gave me a little bit more than if I had just done a basic rectangular tank top.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what I go for, because I see people doing like really elaborate, beautiful work, but no. That's not what I'm gonna do. No. So,
but I think you were doing something very elaborate just because of the fine gauge you were working at. That just kind of pushed it into another place.
It was a labor of love. It was very much so, but it was simple. Like I could watch TV while I was doing it. You know what I mean? And I didn't have to keep referring to a pattern or notes. You know, and I could just look at my stitches and know where I was supposed to be in my pattern. So it wasn't like mosaic is a bit more complicated. Mosaic, you have to pay a little bit more attention compared to this. So I do tend to keep my designs very simple on purpose.
That's the thing. They may be simple to execute, but they don't look like they were simple.
That's what I'm going for. That's the aesthetic.
You're a tricksy crochet.
So, what else do you got?
Well, I am working on my first fall make along project, and I'm getting there. That's all I can tell you. I'm getting there.
Don't talk to me with you and your worsted weight yarn, because you're going to get there pretty quickly.
So this is where I'm up to now. This is the back of the top. I'm trying to catch the light so you can see my beads. So basically, what I'm doing now is I'm working my way up to the shoulder. So this pin represents where the armhole is going to start. I have about 14 inches below the armhole, and I need to work 7 inches above the armhole. So that's going to give me a 21-inch length. Now, I did have to do, my stitches are a little bit shorter than in the original yarn. So I ended up having to do one more repeat of the pattern in the body in order to get, to the, I think the 14, the 13, well, it was supposed to be 13 and a half, but mine worked out to 14. So I'm living with that to get to the length I needed to complete the body. And that was fine. And I calculated it out, and I should have to only do 3 repeats on top to get to the approximately 7 inches that I need to get to. But what I did want to share is something you can try, because I know I've had this experience. You ever measure your piece, and every time you measure it, it's slightly different? Just slightly different. I'm like, why? So I'm running a vertical thread up through the piece, and that's where I'm going to measure every time, because I suspect, because as I'm working on it, it's pulling, it's stretching, whatever, I may have temporarily stretched the part I measured, so it's going to measure a little bit weirdly different than the time before.
Lay something flat to measure it, I give it like a little pat to
but
I don't pull.
I
make sure I pat the top to just smooth out any bubbles that might be in it. And
but I'm trying to do that, and I want to measure in the same place every time, because I think I'm going to get my most accurate measurement that way, and it shouldn't be like, how can that be? Like, wait a minute, that's got to be wrong. So it's pretty simple. Just every few rows, just lay the waste yarn over it, or you can use a needle and just that's what I did. I'm using a needle and going through the very same vertical column of stitches, and that's where I'm going to measure. So it should measure accurately each and every time. We shall see. We shall see. So I'm pretty stoked about this. And what I do is, when I finish a repeat, I try to go in right then and there and put the beads on, because it takes a much longer time if you don't. Ask me how I know.
So you're going to do the beading on the back too?
This is the back.
Oh, snap. I wouldn't. I can't see the beads. It does me no good to have beads back there.
Had I been thinking, I might not have, but I was like, I was excited about the beads. So the whole thing is going to be beaded. So but I love it though. I really, I am so looking forward to wearing this. It feels wonderful. It has very little weight, and I'm glad I'm only putting 1 bead in each diamond, because I think it gives it that sparkle without adding a lot of weight, because if I was doing a bunch of beads, this thing would get real heavy real quick. But that's where I'm at right now. It's all good. But I think that's my tip for this week. Really mark your work some kind of way. I left this lifeline in down here because that is where my sleeves are going to start. So I have this little marker here, but when I was also measuring, I still had this in here. So this lifeline, I'm going to continue to move, because this one's just telling me, okay, 1 repeat, 2 repeats, 3 repeats. But that's it. I don't really have anything exciting going on, except I'm almost done with the back. I'm in the second to last repeat on the back. So maybe in 2 days or so, I should have that done, and I can start on the front.
Is there any neck shaping?
A little bit. It's just really just a tiny kind of little bit. And the shoulders get angled also, but it's just like a little angling. But that's it. I ain't mad. I think I'm going to actually have this finished by the first day of fall.
That was the plan?
I know, right? But I'm believing now. I'm not really great at knitting to a deadline. So I'm like, sure, yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Oh,
But
she was just fronting. Okay.
but it's the first fall Mal 2022. That is our hashtag. So if you're working along with us, please let us see what you're up to. I can't wait to see the fun fall garments. I'm already thinking about outfits to make with this thing.
That's how you do. I tell you, it keeps you going. It's like those green pants.
You had green pants waiting for you?
I did. That's like my signature color. I wear a lot of like in the olive green family. Yes. I've been thinking about like having like a palette specifically. Did we talk about this on camera?
No. We haven't even talked about it off camera, really.
When I go to a yarn store, I just buy whatever colors I like. And since I've been designing things myself, I feel like I'm making much better use of my yarn because I'm not trying to match the yarn up to the requirements of a specific pattern. Instead, I'm just figuring out how to use that particular yarn. So my stash is wild. It has like all the colors. But as I'm thinking more about a specific like me made wardrobe, I'm thinking, should I not even like I have specific colors that I tend to wear a lot of.
Right.
I wear olive green a lot. I wear mustard yellow a lot. I wear like a deep burgundy kind of red a lot. So I know what my colors are. You know what I mean? And I'm like, how much attention should I pay to that when I'm buying yarn? Should I just buy, the colors that are singing to me? Or should I really be focused on my wardrobe's existing palette? Because when I talk about a palette, the colors I'm thinking of, they're right out of my closet. They're the colors that I already wear. And I pay that no mind at all when I'm buying yarn.
You know what? I don't think having a palette is restrictive in that way.
That's the thing. That's where I get confused because I'm like, where the colors that are outside my palette, do I just keep them outside or do I let them in? Or do I let them in on occasion? How long can they stay?
Even if you say, okay, I know this is my palette, your eye is going to be drawn to those colors
exactly.
in your palette anyway. But you can always choose colors to complement. You can always choose colors that are analogous,
Purple wouldn't really be in my palette. The fact is, I've been adding purple to my wardrobe by crocheting. For some reason, I don't find a lot of purple clothes in stores that I really like. I have like a couple of pieces, but with purple being my favorite color, I have way less than you would expect in my wardrobe. But I buy a lot of purple yarn. I do. I just do. I buy purple stylists. I buy purple heathers. I buy purple multicolors. I buy a lot of purple yarn. And so I've actually been crocheting a lot of purple garments. And now I have quite a few handmade things that happen to be purple. So I'm just like, well, is purple in the palette now? Or is purple just like a guest star? Or like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I would try not to think of it as a thing that is restrictive and or exclusive.
But that's the thing. Then what is it? How am I using the palette if it's not like
an organizational
these are my colors?
Tool.
I don't even know what that means.
It's an organizational tool.
Like pink. Pink is not in my palette. I don't have that much pink in my closet. But if I see a pink yarn that I really like, I'm trying to figure out how I would use my palette specifically with regard to buying yarn. And if I see a pink yarn that I really like, do I just go ahead and buy that pink yarn?
Yes.
Or, then what? I don't get it. What am I doing with my palette?
Well, because I don't think having a palette means you're only ever going to wear those colors all by themselves.
Sometimes, let me tell you, when I be seeing the minimalist videos and they have like 3 colors.
Minimalists are a different breed. We're not minimalists.
But and then the capsule wardrobes.
You have your basic colors, but of course you'll mix in other colors because sometimes it's like I never thought I would never have chosen to paint walls beige. But what I've discovered in living in a beige space is that it makes all your other colors shine. So maybe you'll find colors that make the colors in your wardrobe shine.
But here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I say I have a palette, say I pick like 10 colors, right? And it's my palette. And then I buy yarns that are not those colors. Isn't everything in the palette? What is the palette even?
But the palette will probably inform some of those choices, because you'll also pick colors that will look good with your palette. So you won't be literally just choosing every color in the world. You'll be choosing what's going to look good within the one boundary you've created.
I've been thinking about this a lot, but it's largely been in a circle. It's just kind of not really getting anywhere.
It's not all or nothing.
Don't you hate those circular thoughts?
Okay, it's definitely not an all or nothing proposition.
I tend to be very
I know
binary in my choices. It's ones and it's zeros. So either you're in the palette or you're out of the palette. But regardless, the yarns I already have, they're grandfathered, and I'm not gonna like de-stash anything that's not specifically in my palette.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering if the palette is a tool that would actually help me when I'm buying yarn, because sometimes I just grab these.
And you know what? That should be okay. I think if you're buying mostly colors that are in your palette, and every once in a while something grabs your attention, I think that's just fine. It's a very human way to buy.
Sometimes I do this really stupid thing where I'm like, oh, I should buy a color I don't usually buy, and then I hate it.
And that's why you don't usually buy it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm just the opposite.
And I want to prevent that. I want like the palette to help me with that.
I'm just the opposite. I only buy colors I absolutely love. I refuse to buy any yarn that I dislike for any reason whatsoever.
Because I tend to get set in my ways. And so sometimes I do try to push myself, but I feel like I need more of a plan when I push myself, and not just do the opposite.
Yeah, no.
That tends to be how it turns out.
I totally get that. The palette. But I think, don't see the palette as a box that you're putting yourself in.
For me, I conceptualize the palette as a list of the colors that I will wear or buy.
Not the list of approved colors, and only those.
Yes, the list of approved colors.
Let them be a guideline for buying things that are already going to work with your wardrobe. And then I think you need to refine your palette and also include colors that will work beautifully with what's already there.
So I maybe I need to have like a varsity palette and then a JV palette.
Yes.
And the JV are those colors that I don't wear as often, but I still like.
Right.
And purple would be in the JV palette.
And that would go with what you already have. I think that's a very, thoughtful way of coming up with color. There you go.
I see now. It's like the Vice palette.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it. Yeah, I can do. That makes more sense.
So guys, let's ask everybody. How do you work out your color choices? Do you have a palette? Do you have just favorite colors that you always buy? Because we see podcasters who you know who they are by their color.
Yeah.
Gigi Made It loves orange in every shade, and I love that. You know what? Orange. Honestly, I didn't think I liked orange until I saw all the wonderful ways she used orange. I like
coral. So coral is like if orange and pink had a baby.
Coral.
Yes. But I usually don't do like strictly straight up orange like that. But she's making it work.
She opened my eyes to the possibilities of orange. What's her name? Arrow Knits, is that her? She does like these barely there pastel shades, all of them. But if that's what your eye is tuned to, I say, hey, enjoy it, indulge in it. But I on the other hand, Crystal says when she looks at my laundry hanging up, she's like, don't you have anything that's solid? I tend to like an explosion of color. I can't say I have like one color favorite.
A lot more solids. I have to like make myself look at prints sometimes. And sometimes I find one I really like, but I tend to do a lot of solids.
So I don't have as specific a color sense as you do. I tend to just buy whatever tickles my fancy at the moment,
and how.
And I like it. You know what? It turns out that I really like embellished fabrics. So either they're embellished. I was looking at my jeans. I have 3 pairs of jeans. 2 out of 3 are embroidered. So I like embellished fabrics.
But I like so the ones you're wearing now. I like they have a subtle but very pretty embroidery. I do like that. I tend to like metallic accents. Yeah. So anything with a little bit of glimmer or shimmer to it, I do like that. But
and I like solid. That's what I'm gonna, and that's fine. But
although I like multicolored yarns, I do like speckled yarns.
But that's what I'm going to focus on in my wardrobe making because I like my things embellished. I'm just going to give myself the freedom to embellish them. You know,
I keep telling myself I want to learn embroidery, and I do. I actually do really want to learn embroidery, but it's just one of those things that it looks like it's going to be so much work. It's going to be very meticulous. So every once in a while, I see someone's embroidery video on YouTube, and I'd be jelly. I am, but
start slow. Like, I have not embroidered in years. My grandma taught me how to embroider, and I used to actually be good at it, but I literally haven't embroidered in years. So when I did the embroidery on my outline tank, I started with the simplest embroidery possible just to get back in the groove. And I think that's where you start. You start with something real simple, and then, you go buck wild if you want to.
I like to avoid going buck wild if at all possible.
Oh no, it's fun. It's fun.
My queue is getting out of control. I wrote down the other day. What does that mean?
Never do that.
That there was your mistake.
Yeah, it sure was. That's how you scare yourself.
I wrote down all the things that are like the current ideas in my head. It's a lot. I don't know what I'm gonna get to all of it. I feel a little overwhelmed. I get this weird feeling like I'm behind, and I hate that. And I'm constantly having to remind myself that I'm making my own schedule, and that I don't have to finish things. I don't have to do like 10 projects a month or anything like that. But once I start seeing, you know what, I see my list and I start thinking about how long it's going to take me to make the things on the list, and all of a sudden I feel behind. I feel like there just isn't enough time. When am I going to get to this stuff? And it's hard not to like beat yourself up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I feel like I needed to make the list because I didn't want to forget anything, because I have some things that I want to make that I'm very excited about. But looking at it all like that. And then I think I have one or two. I have one UFO, and then I have a maybe UFO. I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to finish it or if I want to rip it out. Those are on the list as well. Do y'all write down your cue? Do you actually like stare it in the face? Crystals at dawn? Because
I gave up on my Ravelry queue because it just became a storage place for things I wanted to remember.
I don't even go on Ravelry because I can't have any more ideas in my head. I can't take it. But I also feel like and maybe it's just my impression, that the crochet, I tend to look at the like what's hot now, and the what's hot now in crochet, it has a lot of things that are not garments compared to knitting.
Yeah,
the knitting what's hot, and I get annoyed. And don't get me wrong, like that pattern for the crochet yip yips was adorable.
What's a yip yip?
These characters from Sesame Street, they're aliens.
Oh, okay.
And they get really excited and they go yip 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 yip. They're very cute. And the I was loving the yip yips, but I'm not gonna make a yip yip. And yeah, I'd like to see more clothes in the crochet what's hot now, just because that's what I'm gonna do. That's what I do. But yeah, Ravelry. I don't need anyone else putting ideas in my head because I already have so many. So I mostly stay off of Ravelry. I might check it like once every other month or so just to see what's going on out there. But do you write down your queue? Do you actually like list it like ordinally with numbers? Because I don't know if I recommend that.
I know I don't.
How do you keep from feeling overwhelmed like that? Because the thing is, for me, it's like just a genuine desire to make these things I'm excited about. It's not like keeping up with anyone else or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's really like, oh yeah, because I start making outfits in my head, and I'm like, oh, I could wear this with this, and oh, that would look so cute if I did that. And I just feel like I can't get to it all. Like I don't have enough time. I see you don't.
I'm thinking
to struggle with that.
Because you know what, there are a lot of things I want to get on, but when I start feeling that way, first I prioritize. I'm like, okay, what am I ready to work? Because you know what, some things you may not be ready to work on. You know, it may not be the right season for you. You may not have all the stuff you need. So the stuff that you're not ready to work on, that goes down further on the list. Is there something I want to wear coming up? So I think about that. And then I schedule time to work on that thing. And I find for me, having a time slot designated, okay, this is the time that this gets worked on, that works for me, rather than saying, oh yeah, I'd like to work on that. Because if it's not attached to a place on the schedule, it may or may not ever get done.
I'm trying to get in the habit of pegging my crochet time to meals. So a little bit after breakfast, I'm going to crochet, a little bit after lunch, and then a little bit after dinner.
Yeah.
So I don't have to think about an hour of the day, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's how I've been doing a lot of things. Like, you know, I've always had trouble keeping up with social media. Mm-hmm. And that's how I finally got it to the place where it is now, where I'm just posting very regularly. I have a couple of days a week designated with some hours on those days where I just do social media. And that's it. And that's the only way that really gets done on that kind of regular schedule. Pegging it to meals is fine because you're still doing the same thing. You're designating time. And that's the way to get it done.
Sleep is the enemy.
It's totally not the enemy.
It's so the enemy. Oh my gosh. It's wasting so much of my time that I could spend crocheting.
It's like I am starting doing small embroidery projects now because I have a large embroidery project that I would like to get done. I have this cashmere dress, right? And I've had it a long time. And it's gotten like some little holes in it. And I'm really sad about that. But that is too much cashmere to throw away. So my plan is to do an all-over embroidery that hides the holes. But right now, my skills are just not up to par for a project of that scale. So I started with a little bit of embroidery on the outline tank. And I'm going to do some other embroidery projects along the way so that I can build up my skills so that when it's, you know, I just downloaded a free embroidery pattern, as a matter of fact, that I'm going to put on my one pair of jeans that doesn't have any embroidery on it. And I'm going to be doing some more embroidery on my knits until I get myself to a place where I'm like, okay, you can do this. And I'm so glad that I've been checking out some of the embroidery videos. I'll put a link below to a couple of ones I've been watching because, woo, transfer methods and stabilizers have come such a long way. Okay, I copied my embroidery patterns onto like
carbon paper.
Would that I had carbon paper. I colored on the back of a piece of paper with a pencil. So it was nice and black. I had a lot of graphite on the back of it. And then I traced my design onto the fabric like that. What did I have? Now there are clear things that you can print your design on.
When I tried embroidery when I was little, I had carbon paper.
Yeah, I'm older than you.
Oh. I'm like, what are you doing with the pencil now? Oh, honey.
I was making my own carbon paper. I was pre-crafting, like you like to say. Making my own carbon paper.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But they have these beautiful like things now that you can just print your design onto. You stick it to the top of whatever you're going to embroider, and you embroider right through it. And you can, some of them are washable, they wash away, or you just tear off some of them. I was like, oh no. Oh no. So I'm glad I checked out what was going on in modern embroidery because it's been a minute for me. I don't want to say many years, but it's been a lot of years since I embroidered anything. So I think.
So how do you schedule your embroidery practice time so you get everything in?
Well,
like, do you practice and knit the same day, or you set those for different days? Or
well, actually, I finished the top and then I did the embroidery, and by incorporating into an existing project, I created the time that way. You saw my swatch. I practiced on the swatch just to kind of, get my embroidery mojo going. But like when you were sewing, you designated a day for sewing.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do that again because the finishing up the overtime top really just became, front of mind for me. Mm-hmm. So now I can start thinking about working on some different projects. But yeah, overtime top took over my life.
It took over for a minute.
It really did. Because, I don't know how people make blankets. I couldn't keep myself going for that long on the same project, especially the temperature blanket people, because you're working on something for an entire year. However you break up that time, if you add to it a week at a time or whatever, it still takes you a year. I just can't sustain my interest in one project for that long because it was getting a little hairy with overtime. I was like, do I really need to finish this?
I have 3 squares already. I know, I can make it work.
But yeah, I'd be ready to get on to the next thing.
And
that's the thing, that's feeling of being behind. It's driving me nuts. And I really need to just deal with that. Maybe, I don't know if it's scheduling my projects better or I don't know.
You know what though? I had to let go of that. When we decided we were going to podcast, I was really like stressing about that. And it's like, oh my God, does that mean we have to finish things all the time and whatnot? And I got over that hump by deciding that this was not going to be the finishing show. I was
really worried every time I dragged out this top. I was like, nobody wants to see it again.
No, but I really want to share with people what the making process is really like, because I think we get a lot of, I tell you, I see this thing on TikTok. I was seeing, it was a trend for a while, where they show you the yarn and then clap their hands and then the thing would appear as though that's how that works.
Oh gosh, and if only.
That is not how making anything works. Anybody who makes anything at all, no.
Yeah, because you had talked about someone you saw on YouTube talking about whether slow fashion was becoming fast fashion because of the pace at which people were insisting on working on things. And for me, I was just like, things are going to take as long as they take. And I'm just going to show people, this is the process. This is how long it takes. Especially the fact that I work on one thing at a time. I was like, this is going to be the project that I'm talking about for X amount of time. I was just watching a video. This woman is an artist, and she was talking about trying to figure out what kinds of videos to make for YouTube, because the videos that perform better for her are videos where she talks about the business side of things, like how she's gotten more views or more subscribers or how much money she makes from YouTube or what have you, as opposed to the videos she does about her art. And it had me thinking about, when art becomes entertainment, how do you balance those things? Because you need the audience. If you're doing YouTube for a living, you need that audience. So you do have to offer them the entertainment they're looking for, but that will necessarily come at the expense of the time you have to spend on just creating your art. And how like, how do you figure those two? How do you balance those two competing things sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I feel about. That's how I was feeling about crocheting, especially with the overtime top, just bringing it out again and again. I was just like, I know there's an audience, and they're interested in seeing projects, but I have to make the thing that I'm making, and it takes the time it takes.
Yeah.
And I also, have to think about preserving my arm, because I have crocheted myself into a very bad place.
No.
I couldn't move my arm.
No, I can't do that.
So I do have to measure the time that I'm actively crocheting, because I can't do an 8-hour day like someone who works a 9 to 5. My arm just won't allow it. So what do you do when your art is for an audience, for that is meant to entertain an audience? And I think every YouTuber who's doing that is figuring out their own solution and finding their own balance. And I guess I just have to find mine.
Yeah. Like I said, the way I think about it in my mind is I'm showing the process and showing the real process. It's not like, it's like when someone says, "Oh, you can just whip that up in a couple of hours, couldn't you?" And I'm like, no.
I didn't know how long I was spending on this top. So I did some mathing, and I was like, oh, snap.
So I think showing people that side of crafting, the actual crafting of the thing is important. I will never do a video that says, I made my dream wardrobe
in 4 days.
No, absolutely not. And that's why I like to show the before.
Then she did it again. I was like, don't you already have your dream wardrobe?
I thought you had your dream wardrobe. What's going on? But that's why I like to show people the pre-work, the before work, or I will talk about my thinking process about something, because all of that is time you put into making the thing, and none of that time really gets counted.
I know, because you would be surprised how much time I worked before I ended up with it.
Yeah.
I was swatching and ripping and swatching and
crocheting away.
And I had like all these stitch dictionaries laid out around me.
Yeah.
But a lot of time went into that before my idea started to take shape.
And I think that letting people know that is part of the process is important, because if you only see the finished object, you think it was born that way. And no, it wasn't. You don't see me when I'm ripping out and literally cussing at the thing I'm working on. You don't see me when I have 8 double-pointed needles going around this thing and realizing, this is not going to work. This is absolutely not going to work. Coming to my senses and saying, you can crochet, just crochet it, honey. What people will remember is a beautifully crafted purse at the end of the story. But that's just the end of the story. Wow, we had deep thoughts tonight.
Did we?
I think so. Well, but I think that's what we're going to show in our podcast.
You're going to get the real here. It takes as long as it takes. Here's all the dreadful mistakes I made along the way.
Because it don't always go right the first time. What ever go right the first time?
Not pancakes. I always have a terrible time with my first pancake.
But I think that's it for me. How are you doing?
Yeah.
All right, guys. See you next time. Have a good night.